Welcome. This is Dr. Raju Devde, Professor and HOD Pharmacology, Kaktiya Medical College, Warangal. Today the topic is anticholinergic drugs. So why I'm restricting my talk to muscarinic antagonists is these anticholinergic drugs are divided into muscarinic antagonists and nicotinic antagonists. So muscarinic antagonists are atropine, scopolamine, and atropine derivatives. Whereas the nicotinic receptor blockers or nicotinic antagonists are neuromuscular blockers and ganglion blockers. So these neuromuscular blockers like pancuronium, vecuronium, D-tubocurarin, and so on and so forth. Ganglion blockers are trimethophan, hexamethonium, etc. So these neuromuscular blockers and ganglion blockers will be dealt with in separate topics. So that is the reason why mostly we say when I talk about anticholinergic drugs, they are the muscarinic antagonists. So when you talk about this muscarinic antagonist, these are the drugs or the anticholinergic drugs which blocks the effect of acetylcholine on the cholinergic receptors, but conventionally anti-muscarinic drugs are referred to as anticholinergic drugs. They are also called as cholinergic blocking or parasympatholytic drugs. So cholinergic blocking drugs, muscarinic antagonists, or parasympatholytic drugs are one and the same. Okay, when we talk about this muscarinic antagonists, the typical drugs which are available are atropine, scopolamine, and its derivatives. So this atropine, it is a prototype drug, which is an anti-muscarinic drug derived from the plant Atropa belladonna. And atropine and scopolamine is also called as hyoscine, and they are called as belladonna alkaloids. Both of them, atropine and scopolamine, they are called as belladonna alkaloids. And they compete with acetylcholine for the muscarinic receptors and block these receptors. And hence they are called as muscarinic antagonists. With this brief introduction, we will just move on to the talk on muscarinic antagonists. If you look at the introduction, in the neurochemistry, a muscarinic receptor antagonist is an agent that reduces the activity of the muscarinic acetylcholine receptor. So this acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter, and the receptor is a protein that is found in the synapse and other cell membranes. And beside responding to their primary neurotransmitter receptors can be sensitive to a variety of molecules, and acetylcholine receptors, they are broadly grouped based on muscarinic, which also respond to muscarine, and nicotinic receptors, which respond to nicotine. Now, when we talk about these muscarinic receptors, we have seen in the last class that this muscarinic acetylcholine receptors, they are G protein coupled receptors, which are found in the plasma membranes of certain neurons and other cells. They play various roles, including acting as the main end receptor stimulated by acetylcholine released from the postganglionic fibers in the parasympathetic nervous system. And these muscarinic receptors were named because they are more sensitive to muscarine than to nicotine. And their counterparts are nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. And these are actually receptor ion channels. They are also important in autonomic nervous system, and many drugs and other substances, for example, pilocarpine and scopolamine, manipulate these two distinct receptors by acting as selective agonists and antagonists. For example, if you look at the muscarinic receptors, pilocarpine is an agonist, whereas scopolamine is the antagonist. Then, you may be knowing regarding this muscarinic receptor subtypes. they are extending from M1, M2, M3, M4, and M5. And as we have seen in the last class, M1 receptors, they are mainly concentrated in the CNS and the GIT. M2 receptors, they are typically present in the heart. And M3 receptors in the smooth muscle and the secretory glands. And M4 and M5, they are not characterized. And most of the currently available drugs, which are non-selective anti-muscarinic drugs, the examples are atropine, atropine derivatives, and scopolamine. So these are non-selective drugs. Okay, atropine, scopolamine, and atropine derivatives. Okay, so when you talk about these classification of these anti-muscarinic drugs, typically these anti-muscarinic drugs are classified into three major categories. Number one, that is natural alkaloids. So anti-muscarinics available as a natural alkaloids are atropine and scopolamine. So this atropine and scopolamine are natural alkaloids. They are called as belladonna alkaloids, and this scopolamine is also called as hyoscine. Then we have the semi-synthetic derivatives belonging to anti-muscarinic drugs. They are homatropine, atropine, ipratropium bromide, thiotropium bromide, methonitrate. They are the semi-synthetic derivatives of the anti-muscarinic category. Then we have the synthetic derivatives or the synthetic substitutes of anti-muscarinic drugs. They are again categorized into mydriatics. So in the mydriatics, we have eucatropine, cyclopentolate, and tropicamide. So eucatropine, cyclopentolate, and tropicamide, they are belonging to a category called as mydriatics. Then we have another category of synthetic substitutes like antispasmodic, anti-secretory drugs. So in this antispasmodic, anti-secretory drugs, we have propanthyline, methanthylline, then we have dicyclomine, pyranzapine, glycopyrrolate, tilenzapine, etc. Then we have synthetic derivatives like the drugs which are used for anti-Parkinsonian effects. So drug-induced Parkinson's, or we call like extrapyramidal reactions. So the drugs used for the extrapyramidal reactions, which typically mimic like the Parkinson, the signs and symptoms of Parkinsonism, they are labeled as anti-Parkinsonian drugs or the drugs used for the treatment of extrapyramidal reactions. They are benzhexol, benzatropine, biperidine. So these are the drugs which are used for the treatment of drug-induced Parkinsonism, or we call like extrapyramidal drug reactions. Then we have vesicoselective drugs like oxybutynin, toltoridine, retoridine, flavoxate, and solifenacin. Okay, they belong to a category which are called as vesicoselective drugs. So these are the drugs, the anti-muscarinic drugs which are available, classified into natural alkaloids, semi-synthetic derivatives, and the synthetic substitutes. And in synthetic substitutes, we have the mydriatics, the antispasmodic, anti-secretory drugs, we have anti-Parkinsonian-like drugs, and then we have vesicoselective drugs. So this is the classification of the anticholinergic drugs or anti-muscarinic drugs. Now, so as I told you, that some of these muscarinic antagonists among the classification like pyranzapine, they are typically acting through inhibiting the M1 receptors. Like that, benzatropine, it is also inhibiting the M1 or anti-muscarinic M1 receptors, and it has less peripheral side effects, benzatropine. Then the muscarinic antagonists, like as I told you, that they are chemically divided into tertiary amines and quaternary amines. So the tertiary amines are the ones which do not, which cross the blood-brain barrier. They penetrate the central nervous system by crossing the blood-brain barrier. So they are called as tertiary amines. So muscarinic antagonists, which belong to tertiary amines are atropine, scopolamine, and benzatropine. And the ones which are categorized as quaternary amines are the ones which do not cross the blood-brain barrier. So they have less CNS penetrant capacity. So they do not penetrate the central nervous system. The drugs in this category are propanthyline, ipratropium bromide, thiotropium bromide, dicyclomine, etc., etc. So this ipratropium, thiotropium bromide are the drugs which are used for the treatment of bronchial asthma as antimuscarinic drugs. Dicyclomine, it is a drug which is antispasmodic drug, dicyclomine. So this is actually the structure of atropine and scopolamine and oxytropium. So atropine and scopolamine, the basic differences, both are antimuscarinic drugs. Atropine also can cross the blood-brain barrier. Scopolamine also can cross the blood-brain barrier, but the capacity of scopolamine in crossing the blood-brain barrier is more when compared to that of atropine. So atropine in very, very toxic doses may result in development of CNS toxicity. So, but scopolamine, it can cross the blood-brain barrier more when compared to that of atropine. Now, when I talk about the mechanism of action of various drugs, for example, if it is atropine, so atropine, it is a non-selective, it acts by non-selective antagonism, the muscarinic receptor. So here, the typical nature of atropine and scopolamine, why they are called as non-selective antagonists, is because they are going to inhibit all the receptors, all M1 to M5 receptors, they are going to inhibit. So atropine and scopolamine is going to inhibit both all M1, M2, M3, M4, M5 receptors. So that is why they are called as non-selective. So whereas in the previous slide we have seen, like the pyrazine, it is only inhibiting M1 receptors. Benzatropine is only inhibiting M1 receptors. But whereas when you talk about atropine and scopolamine, they are non-selective because they are going to inhibit all the receptors. Similarly, ipratropium is also having non-selective antagonism without any mucociliary inhibition. So it does not inhibit the mucociliary secretions. Likewise, tropicamide is also short-acting non-selective antagonist, but this may cause a CNS depression. Similarly, pyrazine, it is a selective antagonist with to M1 receptor. It inhibits the gastric secretion. So it is going to inhibit the gastric secretion. Now, I would like to discuss more about this atropine and scopolamine because there are very classical pharmacological aspects with relation to these antimuscarinic drugs, typically atropine. So when I talk about atropine, it is derived from, it is a drug derived from the belladonna alkaloid. So atropine. So, and then the pharmacological actions of atropine, especially on the cardiovascular system, atropine increases the heart rate by blocking the M2 receptors in the sinoatrial node. So it is going to block the M2 receptors in the sinoatrial node. But in large doses, it is going to cause vasodilatation and hypotension, particularly in the cutaneous blood vessels. That is called as atropine flush. And with respect to blood pressure, the effect of atropine with respect to blood pressure, in therapeutic doses, atropine has no significant effect on the blood pressure. So what are the effects of atropine on secretions? So atropine mainly reduces all the secretions except the breast milk. So it reduces all the secretion, but it does not reduce the breast milk. And typically lacrimation, salivation, nasopharyngeal and tracheobronchial secretions are decreased. And this decreased salivation results in dry mouth and difficulty in swallowing. Sweating is also reduced in higher doses, and this results in increased body temperature. So atropine reduces not only these secretions, it also reduces the gastric secretions at and it decreases the volume as well as the quantity of acid, pepsin and mucus secretions. So when you talk about atropine's role on the secretions. It is going to reduce all the secretions, including the gastric secretions, but it does not reduce the production of milk. Okay. Then when I talk about the role of atropine on the smooth muscle, so there are various areas which are having the smooth muscle. So the smooth muscle of the GIT, atropine completely blocks the effects of acetylcholine on the gut. So whereby it reduces the tone and motility and it relieves the spasm. And these effects of reducing the motility and the contractility of the GIT, including the tone, together they decrease the secretions, may result in constipation. Okay, so that is why these are the drugs used as antispasmodics. Okay, they reduce the secretions in the intestine, hence this may result in constipation. So when I talk about the smooth muscle in the biliary tract, the smooth muscles are relaxed and the biliary spasm is relieved with respect to atropine. When you talk about the smooth muscle in the bronchi or the respiratory tract, atropine and its derivatives, not atropine exactly, the congeners of atropine like ipratropium bromide, thiotropium bromide, they cause bronchodilation and the secretions also reduced and the mucociliary clearance is interrupted. Okay. Then when you talk about the smooth muscles in the gastrointestinal tract, it relaxes the ureters, sorry, the genitourinary tract, not the gastrointestine. It is the genitourinary tract. Atropine relaxes the ureters and the urinary bladder, which may cause urinary retention, particularly in elderly people or typically in elderly male, because whenever the bladder and the ureters, the tone is released, it relaxes the smooth muscles of the ureters and the bladder. There is urinary retention, typically in elderly people, because in elderly males, they also suffer with a disease of the prostate, which is called as benign prostatic hyperplasia. Okay, so that is the reason why in elderly males, we should be very careful when we are giving atropine or its substitutes. Then when we talk about the role of atropine in the eye, so locally instilled atropine drops may result in mydriasis by blocking the muscarinic receptors in the sphincter pupillae. And yeah, the sphincter pupillae relaxes, resulting in passive mydriasis. So the mydriasis secondary to atropine is called as passive mydriasis, and the ciliary muscle is paralyzed, resulting in development of cycloplegia or paralysis of accommodation. And because the mydriasis, the iris may block the drainage of the aqueous humor, and it may result in increase in the intraocular pressure, which may precipitate glaucoma in some patients who are having a tendency to develop glaucoma. So that is the reason why we say that atropine, it is contraindicated in patients with glaucoma. Then when we talk about the pharmacological actions of atropine in the central nervous system, so in the central nervous system, atropine in higher doses stimulates the central nervous system, resulting in restlessness, disorientation, hallucinations, and delirium. So that is why you might have seen patients who are being treated for organophosphorus compound poisoning. As I told you in the last class, the drug of choice for the organophosphorus compound poisoning is atropine, and followed by the cholinesterase reactivators. So atropine can be given to a maximum dose of say 50 milligrams to 100 and even 120, 130 milligrams. Also, it can be given depending upon the requirement of the patients. And this will result in development of what is called as the atropine psychosis. So on the central nervous system in higher doses, atropine stimulates the CNS, resulting in atropine psychosis. Okay. So when you talk about the pharmacokinetics of atropine, So atropine and both scopolamine are well absorbed through the GIT, and they are very well absorbed even when they are given intravenously. They cross the blood-brain barrier and are metabolized in the liver. And the plasma half-life at atropine is 3 to 4 hours. And scopolamine, it is absorbed even through the intact skin. And therefore, if you see that this scopolamine or hyoscine, they are available as transdermal patches. So this hyoscine or scopolamine is available as transdermal patch, which is having a therapeutic use for the treatment of motion sickness. Okay. Likewise, if you look at the amines, atropine and its tertiary amines like pyranzapine, dicyclomine, and benzatropine, they are widely distributed in the body. Okay, and they are having their own therapeutic uses. Then coming to the adverse effects, if I talk about the adverse effects of atropine, so yeah, the adverse effects of atropine are especially in toxic doses. If you see that the symptoms of atropine in toxic doses, which is called as atropine poisoning, has been described very beautifully by Cohen. And the typical presentation of atropine poisoning is, we can say, which is described by Cohen as hot as a hair. So what do you mean by this hot as a hair? So that means to say the body temperature is increased because of inhibition of sweating. So the person will be like hot as a hair, then red as a beet. So what do you mean by red as a beet? That means to say the skin is hot and red or flushed like a beetroot because of cutaneous vasodilatation, and this is what is called as atropine flush. Then the third symptom presentation will be blind as a bat. So what do you mean by this? Blind as a bat means there is blurring of vision and photophobia due to mydriasis and cycloplegia. So there is a mydriasis associated with loss of accommodation, which is called as cycloplegia. That is called as blind as a bat. And then if you look at the fourth symptom in atropine poisoning, dry as a bone. Why it is named as dry as a bone is because atropine inhibits sweating and the skin and mucous membrane get dried up. So that is why it is called as dry as a bone. And then lastly, the symptom of atropine poisoning is mad as a wet hen. So what do you mean by mad as a wet hen? That means to say atropine results in delirium, confusion, excitement, disorientation, restlessness, and hallucinations, and delirium. This resembles that of a wet hen. That means mad as a wet hen. So one has to definitely remember these, the symptoms of atropine poisoning, which have been described by Cohen very beautifully as hot as a hair, red as a beet, blind as a bat, dry as a bone, and mad as a wet hen. So these are the typical symptoms of atropine poisoning. We have to remember these. They may ask you as an what you call like a viva question, etc. Then these are the pharmacological actions of atropine. Then when we look into the therapeutic uses of atropine, definitely the therapeutic uses of atropine, especially number one, to provide rest to the iris in iritis or in iridocyclitis, the keratitis, and after iridectomy. So when you give atropine, instill atropine, it will cause the what you call, it will cause dilatation. So dilatation of the pupil. So there will be rest in case of iridocyclitis and keratitis and iritis. And as mydriatics, they are used alternatively with miotics to break the adhesions. For example, atropine or atropine congeners of atropine like eucatropine, homatropine, they can be instilled along with the muscarinic agonists like pilocarpine to break the adhesions between the iris and the lens, especially in uveitis and iritis. They can be used both for the treatment and prevention of adhesion formation, and for prevention, longer acting agents like homatropine are preferred. Okay, so prevention of adhesions, especially in uveitis and iritis, the adhesions usually occur between the lens and the iris. So to prevent that, not only that, atropine is also used as a pre-anesthetic medication. It is also used in the poisoning, that is especially organophosphorus compound poisoning, and also atropine is used in poisoning due to some the mushroom poisoning. And also atropine is also used along with neostigmine in Cuvier poisoning, used to block the muscarinic effects of neostigmine. And then the congeners of atropine, the derivatives of atropine are used especially in the treatment of bronchial asthma. They are used in the treatment of peptic ulcer. They are also used in the treatment of Parkinsonism. And especially atropine is also used in the treatment of certain cardiovascular disorders. For example, the atropine, it is used in the treatment of AV block. For example, there's a complete heart block. So definitely we will give atropine till a permanent solution is available. For example, a temporary pacing or permanent pacing, we do definitely give what is called as atropine in the complete heart blocks. And in motion sickness, hyoscine is used 30 minutes before the journey to prevent the motion sickness, especially it is available as the scopolamine patch or hyoscine patch, or that is what is called as a transdermal patch. Then the uses, the therapeutic uses of this anticholinergics, especially antimuscarinic drugs, especially in urinary disorders like overactive bladder, urinary incontinence, and in nocturnal enuresis in children, atropine reduces the urinary frequency. And not only that, it has a very important role to play, that is hyoscine or scopolamine can be used during labor to produce sedation and amnesia, which is actually called as twilight sleep. So sedation and amnesia before labor or during the labor. Okay, that is very important. So these are few of the pharmacological actions and therapeutic uses of atropine and its derivatives, typically in various conditions. And apart from that, if I look into the various other drugs like ipratropium, the ipratropium nons, I already told this. Then M1 receptor selective antagonism inhibits the gastric secretion, that is pyranzapine, so used in peptic ulcer. Scopolamine and atropine have similar effects on the peripheral nervous system. However, scopolamine has greater effects on the central nervous system than atropine due to its ability to cross the blood-brain barrier, barrier. And at higher than therapeutic doses, atropine and scopolamine cause CNS depression characterized by amnesia, fatigability, reduction in rapid eye movement sleep. And hyoscine, which is used as an antiemetic activity, typically used in the motion sickness, that also I have told you. And antimuscarinics are also used as anti-Parkinsonian drugs, especially drug-induced Parkinsonism like benzatropine and benzatropine. So that is the thing. And apart from that, effect in the heart, I have already told you that atropine acts on the M2 receptors of the heart and antagonizes the activity of acetylcholine. So it causes tachycardia by blocking the vagal effects on the sinoatrial node. That is why it is used in the treatment of heart blocks. Okay. And not only that, in the atrioventricular node, the resting potential is elevated, which facilitates the conduction. This is seen as a shortened PR interval on the electrocardiogram. That means to say in complete heart block or AV conduction defects, atropine can be used to prevent these AV conduction blocks and the complete heart block till the temporary pacemaker or a permanent pacemaker is available. Then it has an opposite effect on blood pressure. The tachycardia and stimulation of vasomotor center causes an increase in blood pressure, but due to feedback regulation of the vasomotor center, there is a fall in blood pressure due to vasodilatation. And important aspect is muscarinic 1 receptor antagonists include atropine, hyoscine, ipratropium, tropic-amide, cyclopentolate, and pyrazipine. And apart from that, so this, this I've already told you that acetylcholine contracts the smooth muscles except the vascular smooth muscles, and atropine has an antispasmodic action by inhibiting this acetylcholine effect. On the GIT, atropine decreases the tone, it decreases the amplitude and frequency of the peristaltic contractions, and it decreases the hypertonicity produced by the morphine, which justifies its combination to morphine in the treatment of colic pain. So morphine also causes constipation. Atropine also causes constipation because atropine will reduce the secretions in the GIT. Morphine is causing constipation. It's both combined. Atropine and morphine is used in the treatment of colic pain, but this is not exactly what we are taking care of in treatment of the colic pain, right? And on isolated intestine, atropine gives the reduction of the tone and peristalsis and prevents and inhibits the contracture elicited by acetylcholine. This is experimentally. Okay. Then on the bladder, which receives the sympathetic and parasympathetic innervation, the sympathetic nerve tends to dilate the bladder and constrict it and its internal sphincter. The parasympathetic, on the contrary, constricts the bladder and relaxes the internal sphincter. So they act oppositely. So the suppression of the influence of parasympathetic nervous system by atropine gives an increase in the tone of the internal sphincter and dilatation of the bladder, which can induce urinary retention, especially in case of benign prostatic hyperplasia, as I told you, which occurs in the elderly males. And atropine practically has no action on the uterus. So that is why in some textbooks they say atropine is also used in the labor, during the labor. Not atropine, especially that hyoscine. Scopolamine does have a little effect on the labor, which produces sedation and amnesia, which is called as the twilight sleep, but not atropine, which does not have any effect on the what you call like the uterus. And here on the eye, we have seen that atropine inhibits the parasympathetic influence on the eye, which results in passive pupillary dilatation or passive mydriasis and increase the diameter of the iris. And this may result in the elevation of intraocular pressure, and this may predispose to the glaucoma, which obstructs the evacuation of aqueous humor through the canal of Schelm. And atropine, thus, it is contraindicated in patients with glaucoma. So atropine also causes paralysis of accommodation, which is called as cycloplegia, and it will also result in development of photophobia that will also disturb the vision. Then the uses of muscarinic antagonists on the smooth muscle, they cause a relaxation of the gastrointestinal smooth muscle, and especially it is used in the treatment of irritable bowel syndrome. And then muscarinic receptor antagonists like atropine derivatives or congeners of atropine are used from bronchodilation, especially exercise induced bronchial asthma, and they also decrease the secretions during some various surgical procedures, and they are also used in the treatment of Parkinson's disease, especially the extrapyramidal reactions due to certain drugs which are causing the extrapyramidal reaction, which is called as Parkinson-like disease due to drug-induced Parkinsonism. And especially the atropine uses, as I already told you, it is used as a pre-anesthetic medication in the treatment of anticholinesterase poisoning. It is also used in the treatment of sinus bradycardia, especially whenever there's a vasovagal syncope that will result in a sinus bradycardia. And if this vasovagal syncope resulting in bradycardia is not countered in an emergency, we may lose the patient with bradycardia, typically due to vasovagal syncope. And not only that, atropine is also having a use which is called as an antispasmodic use, where it relaxes the smooth muscles and yeah, it relaxes the smooth muscles, it relaxes the sphincters, causing or a reduction in the spasmodic effects, and they reduce the colics also. Then we have tropicamide, which produces mydriasis and cycloplagia in diagnostics or in the diagnosis of certain eye conditions. For example, if I want to see the what you call like the fundoscopy, we definitely use tropicamide or eucatropine or homatropine or tropicamide for dilatation of the pupil to look into the internal structures of the eye, like the fundus and all those things. Okay, so for diagnostic purposes. Then ipratropium, I already told you, it is used in the treatment of asthma and bronchitis. Not only ipratropium, thiotropium bromide, oxytropium bromide, they are used for bronchial asthma and bronchitis. Pyrazapine, it is an M1 receptor antagonist. It is used in the treatment of peptic ulcer. Scopolamine or hyoscine, it's used as a transdermal patch in the treatment of motion sickness. And not only that, cyclopentolate and cyclopentolate, which produces mydriasis and also cycloplagia in certain diagnostic procedures for examining the fundus of the eye. And apart from that, the adverse effects, I already told you the serious adverse effects which are pertaining to atropine poisoning, we have discussed already. But atropine as adverse effects may result in development of urinary retention. It may cause xerostomia. It causes blurred vision. Scopolamine causes sedation. Ipratropium will cause selective antagonism. And benzotropine, which is typically used for Parkinson's disease or extrapyramidal symptoms. Mebavirin, it is used as in the treatment of irritable bowel syndrome, and it is primarily in its form, that is mebavirin, typically, which is used for the treatment of irritable bowel syndrome. Example, it will relieve the abdominal pain, it will relieve the bloating, it will reduce the constipation, and it may cause diarrhea sometimes. Okay. Then apart from that, if you look at tropicamide, it is going to cause ocular hypertension. Then pyrazapine, fewer than non-selective ones, it may cause certain side effects like it decreases secretion, so it may cause side effects. Then cyclopentolate also may cause ocular hypertension. Mebavirin, it may cause skin rashes. And apart from that, if you look at there are certain various atropine substitutes like glycopyrrolate. So if you look at this glycopyrrolate, it is an atropine derivative. This glycopyrrolate, it is used in pre-anesthetic medication and it does not cross the blood-brain barrier. So there are no central nervous system effects. Okay. So there are no central nervous system effects in glycopyrrolate, which is used as a pre-anesthetic medication. Then there is another derivative of atropine, which is called as clydenium. So this clydenium, it is used especially in the treatment of peptic ulcer, intestinal colics, and irritable bowel syndrome. And this clydenium may be combined with benzodiazepines for dyspepsia. So it can be combined with benzodiazepines for the treatment of dyspepsia. So Clinidium used for peptic ulcer, colic, and irritable bowel syndrome. Then we have another drug, the newer drug which is available, that is called as tolterodine. So this tolterodine, the main indication of tolterodine, which is again an atropine derivative, it is used for urinary disorders. Okay, so this oxybutynin and tolterodine, they are used for urinary disorders, especially oxybutynin. It will increase the bladder holding capacity. Okay, so it increases the bladder holding capacity, especially in atony of the bladder. And tolterodine, usually it is also used in urinary disorders, but it will reduce the urgency and frequency of urination. Okay, so one which will increase the bladder holding capacity, that is oxybutynin, and tolterodine, which is used to reduce the urinary urgency and frequency. And these two drugs can be instilled directly into the bladder or applied transdermally. And the dose to be reduced in patients receiving microsomal enzyme inhibitors. So this is very important. So a person who is on cytochrome P450 enzyme inhibitor like ketoconazole, or we have this erythromycin and so on and so forth, this tolterodine and oxybutynin should not be used because they inhibit the metabolism of these two drugs and may result in toxicity. So we have another drug which is called as benhexol. So this benhexol is an atropine derivative, as I told you. It is used in the treatment of drug-induced extrapyramidal syndrome, which is also typically resembling the Parkinsonism like symptoms. Okay, so these are certain atropine substitutes or derivatives which are used in therapeutics. So with this, I think we have finished the anti-muscarinic drugs. So as you know, these anti-muscarinic drugs, to sum up, these anti-muscarinic drugs, they are also called as anticholinergic drugs. These anticholinergic drugs are the drugs which are going to block either the muscarinic receptors or the nicotinic receptors. When they are blocking the muscarinic receptors as a whole, they are called as anti-muscarinic drugs like atropine, scopolamine, and its derivatives. Okay. Then the drugs which are going to inhibit the nicotinic receptors, that is the nicotinic receptor blockers, they are neuromuscular blockers, and then we have ganglion blockers. So these neuromuscular blockers and ganglion blockers can be discussed in the next class. So with this, I think I have come to the end of my talk, that is anti-muscarinic drugs. So please remember atropine and its derivatives, scopolamine, and various other drugs which are used in the treatment of various clinical conditions. So these are the anti-muscarinic drugs. Thank you.